very good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock here in Melbourne on this Tuesday morning, but it's not just a regular Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday the 8th of March. It's International Women's Day, and in the studio I am joined this morning by the very excited Beth AQ. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here on this wonderful International Women's Day. It happens once a year and I'm very excited to be celebrating.
On air.
On air.
Now, we've got a huge show coming up for the Breakfast Spread. We've got
Chloe Turner,
who is behind Listen Records and also works at Music Victoria. We've got Karli White coming in, Simona Castro Kim.
And we also have Grace Kay coming in from Wet Lips. So we've got a stellar lineup for today.
For the Breakfast Spread.
We are joined in studio now by the wonderful Chloe Turner, who is the head of Listen Records and also is a worker bee for Music Victoria.
Chloe, do you want to tell us a little bit about Listen Records?
It's pretty much a label that focuses exclusively on female and queer talent and releasing that music. Yeah, so it's a collective, it's like a big group, and I guess our little statement is to cultivate and spark conversation around marginalised communities with a feminist perspective. We like to think that we kind of represent female and queer people in the Australian music scene, including people of colour and First Nations people.
Now, Chloe, I was wondering if we could just chat a little bit about, you do work for Music Victoria, and late last year they put out the discussion paper for the women in Victorian contemporary music industry, and it talked about gender equality. Can you tell me a little bit about what was found from that paper?
Yeah, so we did a survey to just women working in the Victorian contemporary music industry, and we had about 300 people fill it out, just asking questions about gender equality and about pay differences. The key themes throughout the report that women found as barriers to their career in music was having children in quite an ageist industry, the fear of getting sexually harassed, not having access to professional development and confidence. Just having all that written down on paper in a report form, as an official document, I think is really, really important and super beneficial to the progression of trying to improve this. From that, we put together an advisory panel for Music Victoria to kind of help us come up with initiatives to work on this problem. So we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, even from the perspective of putting it in people's minds and being conscious of it, when you're making decisions or when you're looking for people for various roles, to even have it, I think, in your consciousness is
Definitely
important.
Since I've been a part of Listen and learning more about that kind of stuff, just being conscious of even when I'm looking at gigs and booking gig lineups and just being conscious of how diverse the lineup is in a few different ways as well, gender as well as cultural background and stuff like that. I don't know, just being mindful not to book a boring gig.
That is good advice.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky because to help us celebrate International Women's Day, we are joined by the wonderful Simona Castro Kim. Thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Good morning. Hi.
Hello.
And Simona, this album was self-produced. Can you tell me a little bit about the actual making of?
I started making music in the early 2000s. I'm really lucky I've got this really great little space to make music, which is my apartment. I took a year off work, just sat in my space and made a lot of music, and I guess I was probably spending a bit more time in the club and been able to reconnect with techno in a really good way, I think, in the last 2 years. The other side of it is the stories and the lyrical components. So I guess part of what I've had to go through in terms of transition is I kind of channel my experiences into my lyrics. But it's a good space for all of those emotions to come out. Being a trans woman and being a musician, but also being able to kind of push through, the sort of bro barriers of techno.
Nice.
Thank you so much for coming in today and helping us celebrate International Women's Day.
My pleasure, and have a great day.
We're chatting to Grace Kay from Wet Lips here on the PBS Breakfast Spread. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you think it's important to celebrate International Women's Day?
It's still really important to take time out of the normal schedule to actually focus on women for a while, because, while it would be great to have 50% women all year round, that just doesn't happen. And so it's still really important to have these occasions where we do focus on women and women's music and women's voices in order to kind of keep the momentum going towards future equality. There's just so many fantastic bands that have women in them. I would say, women absolutely dominate, particularly in Melbourne. And so it's great to introduce people to those bands where they might not have heard them before.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us
No
this
worries.
morning, Grace.
Thanks so much for having me.
Karli White, just extraordinary musician. She joins us right now in the studio. Good morning, Karli.
Good morning.
Now,
I was wondering why you think it's important to have days like today where we kind of put women to the front.
From my experience in music, it's like a lot of the scenes have been very dominant with men, and I think it's good just to ask the question why. From my experience, I can look at perhaps why I didn't do music for a really long time, and maybe I was a little bit intimidated by certain scenarios, and what could have been different for me to feel a little bit more comfortable with taking a risk. And I think there's a lot of answers when you start thinking about now, when now experiencing Melbourne as sort of growing to be a lot better with balanced lineups and a lot more women doing things. You can see how it can be really inspiring just to have a shot.
How do you think we can encourage more women into music?
Yeah, enable more opportunities for people to have female role models, and enabling opportunities for women that might not be so confident to just get up there into that world.
that sounds good. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So have a great International Women's Day and stay tuned to PBS.